Welcome, gardeners. My name is Sasha and I live in Kochi, India. You are watching the Urban Gardener channel. Now, let's get growing!
All right. Welcome, gardeners, to your weekly gardening livecast here on the Urban Gardener channel. Let's get growing. Now, I'm Enoch. I'm going to be your host today, and we've got another great, fun, and exciting show for you here this week. We've got with us our featured guest, Bevin Cohen of Small House Farm. He's an author and podcaster. We're really excited about having him later on. We're also going to have with us Emmanuel Arce of Ultimate Gardening as our channel of the week. And we're also following Lanny of Gingerfoot Garden. So be sure to stay tuned for all of those great guests coming up here in the show. Now, if you are joining with us live, be sure to get into our comment box there, leave some comments, ask some questions. We love to hear from all of you here who are watching this show with us live. So be sure to do that and let us know a little bit about what you got growing on in your garden. And also, be sure to give our show a big thumbs up too. Hit that like button and also subscribe to the channel if you haven't already so that you can follow along with all of the great garden adventures that we have here on the Urban Gardener channel. So again, it's really awesome to have all of you here with me today. One of the things that we're going to do too as well to start out the show is we're going to start with our question of the week too. So our question of the week this week is, are you trying or growing anything new this season? So that's another way for you all to be able to get into our chat box and let us know what you've got growing new in your garden this season. And we'll feature some of your answers to those questions and all of that here a little bit later on in the show. So, this last week, and actually just yesterday, we released our video on the Amazon spheres. Now, that's such a really fun video. I'm really excited about you all being able to check it out. We do have a link down in the description below. So you can go and check out that video as well too. It's really great. It was such a fun garden adventure for us here on the channel to do when we took off to Seattle for the flower and garden show up there. I took a little detour into downtown Seattle, and Amazon, everybody's familiar with Amazon, has this just giant structure in downtown that it's like looks like three bubbles that are kind of smashed together. It's kind of a big giant biodome. And I went and saw this a few years ago when I was at a previous flower and garden show, but they only allowed you to kind of go into the what they call the understory. It's basically a public visitor center that allows you to see how it's all put together and all of that, and how they put all of these plants in these plant walls. So you get to see that. I do have a video on that as well that's linked in the video for the Amazon Spheres video that I have already put in the description for you down below. But it's just an amazing place. Now, they finally opened it up here in the last couple of years for everybody to be able to go and do a tour. I think they do it on the first and third Saturdays of the month. And you're able to go in there and walk all around and check out all of the just amazing things that they have growing on inside of these spheres. And it's just an awesome experience. I really encourage all of you to check out the video for one. But if you're in Seattle and have an opportunity to sign up and go check out this wonderful feature there, I mean, there's so many things that are growing on in there. They got these big giant trees growing inside of the dome. Um, and it's all just of course they got the light coming from the dome coming in, but it's supplemented with all this other light. They uh push in the right type of air and humidity and mist all of these plants and everything. And it's just really cool to see. They got some really awesome walk paths that you can walk around through and check out and experience all of that too. So um, yeah, I just really enjoyed this one. It was probably one of my favorite videos that I've made so far this year, probably in the last couple of years, actually, because it was just one of those things that, again, when I went to go visit it before, um, a couple of years ago, we were only able to go and check out this visitor center. And so you can just see inside of it and what all the stuff that's going on. And you wonder what is going on inside of there. So, it was really awesome to be able to finally get to go check it all out. So many plants. I can't even name most all of these plants in there. They got some really cool water features, a couple of aquariums. It's like 3 stories tall, so you can walk on these kind of elevated walk paths and everything. But yeah, just really, really cool and really something neat to see. So really check out that video down below in the description and go see that video. It's really cool. Really, really cool. And again, too, we'll also this next week be getting started up with one of the video series that I do throughout the growing season is our garden journals. So I finally got to get outside this last week after some of the weather and everything to be able to finally start getting into some of my elevated beds, some of my containers, and kind of fix some things up because it's just one of those things that we got to do out of the winter time is to just kind of assess where our garden is and how everything and what everything we're going to need to do in order to get it all prepared for the season. So we got that all set up. So look forward to that video coming up this next week as well too. So also, and if again, I want to say again too, is to get into that comment box there and let us know if you got any comments or question as well too. So time for our first segment of the show, and it's time to check out what Mark has going on in the garden with NBC.
Hey guys, welcome to another segment of In the Garden with NBC. This time we're on location in my backyard where I have my backyard compost system. It might look like to the untrained eye just a series of garbage cans, but I'm going to explain it to you. I'm going to tell you why this is such an important part of my overall gardening system. And the ability to make our own compost is just really taking nutrition and our own garden needs into our own hands. We're completing cycles. We're reusing materials that we would have otherwise shipped off site. We've already brought them in. The nutrients have already come to us. Obviously, we're consuming some of those nutrients in the form of vegetables and other things. But then we have the wastes, which also contain nutrients, and we don't want to lose those. In addition, I just cycle through a lot of my other landscaping plants. Show you in a minute that I have some grasses waiting to go in the compost into the mix. I'm using worms. It's primarily a worm-based system. They're hanging out in these bins. Surprisingly, once you get a garbage can that's about, I've got these brute 44-gallon cans. Let's just tilt down for a minute there. You can see just a lineup of cans. They're sitting on blocks, and in order to prevent the bane of all compost systems is of course rats. We don't want rats to get into our compost system. So I've got the concrete blocks that rest on the ground. I've got a layer of mesh of hardware cloth, which is that kind of fencing kind of with some very small mesh, and a layer or two, I think. And then I've got my can with perforated drainage holes, small holes. So there's really, I haven't had any problems with any rodents getting up through. We want to make sure right from the get-go that we don't have problems. We're not attracting those creatures into our backyards. We don't necessarily want them. Our neighbors don't want them. We're not going to be the most popular person in the neighborhood if we're breeding rats in our compost pile. So we got that out of the way. That's great. Let's dive into the actual kind of mechanics and maintenance of it. So I have 5 cans actually, 5-can system. The composting is done right in place. Obviously with worms, as you're placing more organic material on top, the worms are working their way up, and I keep adding some layers of food versus newspapers, cardboard, kind of bedding type material. Sometimes I'll use coconut fiber if I have that as well. Sometimes I've even used potting soil, just layering mainly to give the worms a medium to go through and also to absorb some of the juices and the liquids that come from the vegetable material. In a standard hot compost pile, you're trying to balance carbon and nitrogen. We don't really have to worry so much about that, and we're not trying to get the heat here. This is a different kind of compost system. That said, compost piles do benefit from aeration and from some turning. And you may be wondering, if I have my system in a garbage can, how do I do that? Well, this is all made possible by the discovery of this wonderful tool called the Compost Crank. So this is a stainless steel corkscrew. You can see it as it rotates in the intended direction. That leading edge is, just imagine it plunging deep down into the compost pile, creating a hole. You can see it's got an offset handle with an offset shaft with 2 handles, and you just spin it around in a corkscrew fashion. You can also back it out as it gets deep or stuck. You can reverse the direction. So this basically, I call this my metal worm. It sort of bores a hole down through the compost, and that alone, if you were just to back it out, it would create an air channel. But what's really great about this is you can see the end is in a basket style. Once you get this thing down in there, you can give it a haul back and take out a whole core of the compost. And you do this in successive motions. You channel down a little bit, and then you pull up a certain amount, loosen that, then you go down a little further. You'll know if you've gone down too far, you won't be able to take it down. So let's see this in action. This is a great upper body workout. So in this bin here, this garbage can, I've got mostly finished compost. It's been sitting and aging for a while. This multi-bin system, you can see I just go down, I pull up, I go down, I pull up. It's all very loose, so it's not giving me a lot of resistance. In this multi-bin system, I'm working 1 or 2 bins actively. I'm adding new material. The worms are working their way up. And then when I'm ready to start a new bin, I'll usually take the top surface that has the greatest concentration of worms, put that in the bottom of a new bin, and then again begin to work my way up with new materials, adding some bedding materials. Like I said, some of my recycled cardboard I use for this purpose. I've got some grasses that I was just trimming from the landscape. So it's a real catch as catch can methodology. There's no set kind of materials. If I have old recycled newspapers, I'll use those. Just as materials become available that I think will be good at providing some of that bedding and soaking up moisture, I'm going to use it. The worms don't seem too fussy. When compost is aged for a while, I bring out the next set of tools, which is a sifter. This is a 2-panel sifter, so it has a larger mesh there, and then I can switch to a smaller mesh if I want a finer product. Those are interchangeable. I can switch those out. Got myself a scoop, and I've got a bin here that sits on top of the system, and I can use, the nice thing about this system also is that all the garbage cans come to about waist high. So it forms a kind of a counter or work surface. And if I had leveled this a little bit better at the beginning, intentionally put down some gravel and gotten it nice and level, I could have built them up all exactly even. I wasn't really thinking of that when I got into this system, but I could have set them all up exactly even, and then I could have put some wood on top of that and used it as an actual work table. As it is, each 44-gallon brute can, that's the basic unit that I use, is wide enough. The lid is wide enough to use as a very nice, comfortable workstation. I've got it in a shaded area, protected from the summer sun, and I can come out here and do some seeding or a lot of other things right on top of that area as well. But let's get to the sifting. So when I have some finished compost, I'll take a certain amount out. If you saw my video last week in the seed room, you know that some of my seed mix is my own compost. So after this is aged for about a year from the initial dumping in, it's sat a year. I've been aerating it. I may have shifted some of it from one bin to another, but I don't turn it very much that way. It's too much work. Then I'm going to start scooping it out, sifting it to the degree that I need. And then what's great is all the leftovers from the siftings are just going to go right on top of some more of the vegetable matter, and they'll continue to break down. Here I can see common things that I see that take a while. I see an avocado pit, I see a corn cob, I see some egg shells. These are things that take a little longer to break down. I'm not in any hurry though. You can put your eggshells in a blender. You can pulse them if you want them smaller. You can chop up some of this stuff. I'm not in too big a hurry. I'm happy to let nature take its course. And some of this stuff actually just serves as a kind of an aeration for the whole system as well, the bigger particles or a mix of particle sizes. So we'll do a little more sifting here. That's going to go in my active bin. And then I have a beautiful product here. This is actually just running through the first sifter, but I can even get it finer if I need it. But this is pretty good for my mix. I use this as a top dressing, which means I spread it around the plants as they're growing during the season. I'll incorporate some of it into certain raised beds as I see fit or as I need. And it's just, it's a wonderful resource, and it's great having a source of fertility right at your fingertips. So I'm going to encourage all of you to kind of set up and think about your own compost system, see what you can do to get one going, and I promise you, you will not regret being able to compost right at home. I'm sure many of you already do. I'm sure you agree with me that this is a vital part of your garden system. So once again, great to be with you in the garden with MBC. Next week, I see a rooftop garden in our future. In fact, I see me at Noble Rot Rooftop Garden telling you about what you need to stock up on before the garden season gets going in full force to be fully prepared. So we'll see you next week in the garden with MBC. Always my pleasure. Have a great garden week.
All right. How awesome. All of that great composting information from our good friend, Mark Boucher Colbert. And you can get down in the description below too, and check out a link to his Instagram, where he also shares lots of really fun and cool things that he's got going on in the garden. And now it's time for our garden stories. This week's garden story comes in from viewer Jackson Horton. Jackson began his deep dive into gardening in 2015 after graduating from college with a BS in environmental studies. His partner grew up gardening, and she's the one that helped him find his passion for plants. The first thing he grew that year was snap peas, which really struggled in the clay-heavy soil. They didn't perform well, but he was hooked at that point. They moved into their current house in 2017. Their garden was small and primarily contained to pots and a few raised beds the first few years. In 2018, he spent 6 months helping build an off-grid homestead on Oahu. While he was there, he ended up with some seeds from some Bolivian rainbow and Hawaiian chili peppers that a friend was growing. He had been growing Thai peppers up until this point, but that was when he got the itch to start a pepper business. Once Jackson moved back home, he started getting seeds for a bunch of different pepper varieties and started selling pepper seedlings in 2019. From there, he made a website, pdxpeppers.com, and started selling pepper seeds in 2020. They got permission from the landlord to turn the back and front yard into a garden. To convert the lawn, he lightly broad forked the whole yard. Then they used the lasagna gardening method. At this point, he started messing with hot sauce recipes, and by 2021, he had 4 different fermented hot sauces available. He now ended up pretty far down the gardening and soil science rabbit hole, reading every relevant book on the subject and going through his local master gardener program. Along with working for a few farms and a nursery, this resulted in Jackson wanting to share the knowledge he had gained and used by making YouTube videos. In 2022, they bought the house from their landlord, which eased a ton of stress associated with running a farm business on rented land. They can now really fill in the property the way they want and are excited about this season. So, all right, really great gardening story from Jackson, and we'd love to hear your garden stories as well too. So be sure to go check out our website at letsgetgrowing.live, and you can go up and check out the tab that says Get Involved. And in the Get Involved tab, you'll be able to fill out a form and submit your garden stories so that we can read them here and share some of your pictures right here on the show and tell all of your garden stories. That's what we really love to do here on our channel, is talk with all these different great gardeners and share garden stories with everybody. So please be sure to go and do that if you've got a really fun and interesting story. So now it's time for our Instagram segment.
Are you following me? Are you following me, dude?
This week's Instagram segment, we are featuring Lanny of the Gingerfoot Garden. Lanny is an Insta gardener where she shares all of her gardening adventures. All right, so let's welcome Lanny to our show from the Gingerfoot Garden. Awesome to have you here with us this week.
Hello.
Excellent.
Hello.
Thank you for joining with us. How are you doing?
No problem. I'm doing good. How about you?
We're doing great over here in Southern Oregon. Where do you garden from?
So I live here in Maryland, Zone 7, and yeah, it's actually pretty good today. The weather is beautiful, and I can't wait to get out there soon.
Awesome. Yeah, I know. It's been something for us here too in Southern Oregon where I live. So the winter weather has been kind of holding on, and we just had some snow recently and some cold nights, but everything's starting to kind of warm up, and I've got my hopes up that we're all going to be ready to go here real soon. So I started getting out and cleaning up the garden and figuring out what we're going to be doing. So first thing I want to ask you is, what was your first gardening experience? Where did it all get started for you?
Okay, so as far as gardening, I would say I've been exposed to gardening back when I was younger, because my mom loves mostly ornamental plants, because we have a small space. And if for just for background, I grew up back in the Philippines and moved here when I was 28. Yeah, when I was 28. So most of my context is the Philippines, and we live in a smaller space, so we didn't really have a lot of space to grow. But my mom loves growing orchids. But back then, I didn't really care so much about growing plants. But I've learned here and there a few things about gardening, but I haven't really get into gardening until we had the pandemic. And I think a lot of the gardeners these days could actually identify with that, because it was a very, very stressful time for all of us. Most of us could say that we don't really know what's going on, and part of me was feeling scared and not sure about things. So I was starting to feel paranoid, and one time I was walking with one of my friends just to just so we could go somewhere else and have a little bit of exercise, and we found this lady who is selling some ornamental plants for cheap, because she was almost like, hey, take the plant, just give me whatever you want. And so I wound up taking home some succulents, spider plants, and I think euchera. And I just wanted to, I just wanted to keep the plants alive. So I started researching like how to care for plants and things like that. And next thing you know, I'm getting hooked because I'm learning so many things from, how to garden. And next thing you know, I'm
Yeah.
having that desire to grow something of my own for myself.
Right. It's quite amazing, and definitely, I'm sure a lot of people can understand and relate to how things went during the pandemic. That was one
Hmm.
of the things for me. I'd already been gardening for a while, but especially during that time period, it
Hmm.
was really like one of those things that just brought such a relief from everything that was going on. Instead of feeling trapped indoors, it's just really awesome to get outdoors, start working with the land and the soil and caring for plants and all of that. One of the best things about gardening, I find, is that sort of kind of garden therapy that you get from
Yes.
growing plants and doing all that sort of stuff. And yeah, and I'm glad that you were able to find that and to be able to do that. It's just, again,
Hmm.
one of those things
Yeah.
that really does make a
Yeah. Like,
difference.
I can tell you that, like, back then I don't really care about going outside at all. And it's funny. And since I started getting into gardening into plants, I wind up actually spending a lot of time in creating a space in our backyard where you're not just gonna, just like what you said, you're not gonna be stuck in the house. Instead, you have another place to go instead of just being inside the house. So that's just beautiful.
Yeah, exactly. It's a good place to escape is into the garden, and there's nothing better than growing plants. What are some of your favorite plants to grow in the garden since you got started?
Yeah, so I actually love growing succulents, but unfortunately I don't have a lot of space to grow them, so I'm very limited to growing them. I think I only have the echeveria, and I
Okay.
forgot I forget the name of the other plants. But the main plants that I actually love growing in is are actually the plants that I grew up eating back in the Philippines. And a lot of times I would find those vegetables in the Asian market, but most of the time the prices are not very cheap. So I said,
Yeah.
if I can grow them in my own backyard, that would be wonderful. So I started growing some of them. Yeah, I would say so.
Yeah.
To name a few plants, I would say one would be calamansi. It's a citrus plant, which is more like a cross between lemon and lime. And I
Okay.
actually just bought the plant, and the one that I got was the variegated one.
Yeah.
It's just beautiful, and I'm looking forward to harvesting that.
Oh, that
Another plant
sounds
I would say would be the ginger.
You like to grow ginger, huh?
Yeah, yeah. Actually,
Oh,
I've realized that there's a lot of people who are actually very interested in growing ginger. So I started ginger grow along on my Instagram account. Yeah, so we'll talk about that, I guess.
yeah, yeah, definitely. So out of all the different things that you've been growing and learning about growing, do you find any of them to be, what's your most difficult plant that you've had a hard time growing?
Mhm. So I would say the ginger gave me a hard. For some reason, it went back to going ginger. It because I came from the context of growing in a tropical country. I've always known warm weather, so I
Yeah.
didn't know how to grow something in a colder climate. So I had a hard time in the beginning how to grow how to grow ginger, and then later on I kind of discovered how to grow it, and I would say that's the one that I had a hard time growing, but then I've learned later on how to do it. Another thing that I still haven't really mastered how to grow are the cabbages and broccoli. I
Yep.
haven't really grown a good head of cabbage and broccoli for some reason, but I'm not gonna complain about it. I'm still, getting something from the garden.
That's right. That's right. That's same with me. I have the hardest time with brassicas. They give me a challenge every single year, but like I say, I'm always determined to get it figured out. So I try no matter what each and every year to grow some. Last year, I ended up finally getting some decent broccoli out of my garden, so that was good.
Awesome.
But my cabbage heads only got, so big and didn't really fully develop. So again, another challenge for me too. I got the same challenges working on those brassicas, but I'm
Mm-hmm.
determined. I will get them done.
Yeah. Yes. One day we will get it.
That's right. That's right. So tell me, what inspires you? We know that you started gardening out of the pandemic and all of that. You're learning about doing all
Mm-hmm.
of these different things in the garden. What inspires you to start up an Instagram and share all of your gardening experiences on Instagram?
All right. So when it comes to that, I really just wanted to give my Facebook friends a break from my post about plants and gardening, because I feel
Yeah.
like, oh man, my friends are gonna be so tired of this. And so I wind up like posting them on my Instagram. I created the account just basically dedicated for gardening. And the reason for that is because I feel like on Instagram you're not really gonna be judged so much when you post all about a certain topic. And
Yeah.
with that, it's funny how you wind up developing more relationship with other people and forming a community. And that, I think that's one of the reasons I fell in love with the Instagram account. If it's not account, but Instagram platform, more than
Yeah.
any of the other platforms.
Yeah, definitely. And it's really, I think that Instagram is such a great fit for gardeners and being able to share and enjoy the gardening experience with everybody. And I'll tell you, you've done really well with that. Were you kind of surprised at getting all of the followers and all of that you ended up getting out of that?
Oh yes, oh yes. I told my husband before and other people that I'd never really expected to grow that much on Instagram. I just know that I just like the community. I just like the connections that I've made, like, it's like I said, it's quite funny to say that, oh, I have to talk about, oh, I have this gardening friend. You haven't really met them in person, but then you have somehow made a connection with them through Instagram, and it's just beautiful.
Yes, it's absolutely one of my favorite things about getting into the whole gardening community myself was to be able to meet and enjoy conversations about gardening and all the different aspects of gardening with all the people that are out there. And I found that the gardening community is definitely one of the best and most open communities that's out there, and I just really love it. And I really absolutely enjoy following your Instagram account. You've really done
Thank
well
you.
with it. And as far as gardening and Instagram, you're one of the you're Instagram famous in the gardening world, and it's really awesome to see all of the things that you've done. Do you have any plans for anything in the future for gardening, or any other projects or anything like that you're working on?
Honestly, I just want to do. I just want to be able to create. I would say just be more organized when it comes to it, like posting, because I find it a little bit more challenging these days because of the things that we go through in life. And as if you guys have followed me for a while, you guys would know that my husband is going through chemotherapy right now, and things are a lot more challenging. He's doing okay, by the way, but things are a lot more challenging now. Even with me working part time as well, it's more challenging. So I'm trying to improve my system as far as growing on Instagram, and I would say just want to do better. There's really no fancy plan at the moment.
Yeah.
But we'll see how it goes. We never know. In 1 year, there could be something that would open up, maybe more opportunities. We'll see how it goes. I just want to, be able to serve the companies that I work with, and also the people that are following me. That's all that I have for now.
Awesome. Well, you're doing a really great job, and bless your heart, you're being with your husband and dealing with all of that you're dealing with there too. And really awesome of you to come here and join with us here on our show. It's been really great to have you here and have a little conversation about gardening and all of that. So thank you again for taking the time out of your Saturday here to join with us here on Let's Get Growing.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Thank you, Lanny. And everybody, be sure to go and check out her Instagram, again, down in the description below.
Thank you, everyone. And thank you, Enoch.
You got it. Awesome. We'll see you later. See you on Instagram.
See you.
Ivory Organic was founded on the gardening concept of whitewashing, simply lightening your plants to better tolerate weather extremes, transplant shock, and so much more. Such a valuable gardening practice that farmers have been doing it since BC times. However, in recent years, most research has been caring for plants and trees using latex and tar-based products which are designed to last 100 years but fall off your plants within 1 to 2 years as your plants grow, contaminating your garden soil indefinitely. Ivory Organic gives organic commercial orchards and backyard growers an organic and healthier alternative. Also, unlike latex and tar-based products, Ivory Organic dries on porous, allowing moisture and nutrients to pass so that your coated surfaces such as grafting wounds and pruned branches will not rot. Available in colors white or more natural looking colors such as brown, green, gray, and grayish. White naturally reflects the most amount of heat, but all colors offer protection on unprotected surfaces from the elements. Ivory Organic has 2 general categories of whitewash products. The 3-in-1 Plant Guard, which includes 7 natural oils, including castor, cinnamon, clove, garlic, peppermint, rosemary, and spearmint, which offer insect and rodent repellent protection, and the whitewash oil-free formula. Both products also have diatomaceous earth in the base ingredients, which naturally offer some insect repellent protection too. As always, keep growing with Ivory Organics, and wishing you all happy gardening.
So, all right. Now, at the beginning of the show, I asked you all about our gardening question of the week. This week's question is, are you trying or growing anything new this season? And so far, we got a couple of answers for our question in our chat box there. Our first answer comes from Greg, last week's guest, Farmer Greg Peterson. He said, "Oh my God, I am trying everything new this season as I have never grown in Asheville." Yeah, Greg's growing his first gardens in Asheville. He's originally from Arizona. And so that's quite a difference in climate that he's going to have to figure out and growing. So he's got all sorts of new things that he's going to be growing in his garden. Be sure to go also check out last week's Let's Get Growing show too, where we featured Farmer Greg as our featured guest. And we also got an answer from, looks like our producer, Michelle. This season, I am going to start asparagus. I ordered 100 roots through Johnny Seeds. They should ship soon. I hope I didn't bite off more than I can chew. Work party, anyone? Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. Thanks, Michelle, for answering our question. We also had a couple of answers on our Facebook Let's Get Growing page, where we post this weekly question from our show onto our Facebook group and ask all of you out there to share with us all of the new things you've got growing this season. And our first one was from Connie Davidson. She says she's growing daikon radishes and rosa tomatoes. She's also trying out leeks, bunching onions, and scallions, but some are looking good and some aren't. Oh, well, hopefully they all start looking really good in your garden here. So awesome. Thanks, Connie, for submitting your answer to our question. And then we've got our viewer, Nancy Hood, saying in the fall, she planted some elephant garlic, which she has never grown. I want to compare it with German hardneck garlic that she's grown for years just for fun. Elephant garlic's really great. I really love growing elephant garlic myself too, and it's really cool to kind of get those really big garlic bulbs out of your garden each season too, as well. And then we've got Marcy Isherwood says that she won an eggplant and it's just not growing in 9B, Florida. Oh, well, hopefully we get that figured out and your eggplant gets to produce some really good fruits for you there. Eggplants are just a really beautiful plant. They're probably one of my favorites as far as growing and their beauty and the leaves and the fruits and all of that sort of stuff. But have to admit, I'm not much of an eggplant connoisseur either when it comes to actually eating them. So I grow them for the fun and then I give them away to all of my friends and family who actually enjoy them a bit more. So awesome. Thank you all for submitting your answers to our weekly gardening question. And this week's garden question is, what's your hardest gardening challenge? Now, you can answer our question, what's your hardest gardening challenge, on our Facebook group and at the Let's Get Growing Gardening group. And you can find a link for that down in the description. The Let's Get Growing Gardening group is a great place for all of you who are watching and participating with the Urban Gardener channel and our Let's Get Growing show, and be able to share some of your different gardening experiences with pictures and video. And you can ask questions, you can answer questions, and especially be sure to go there and give us an answer to this week's question. What's your hardest gardening challenge? So, all right, now it's time to see who we got following on our channel of the week this week.
Hi, Ultimate Gardeners.
Hi, my name is Nathan.
Hey guys, what's up? I'm Rachel.
All right, so this week we're going to be following along with Ultimate Gardening, Emmanuel Arce. He gardens down in Florida, and we're looking forward to talking with him here. Let's welcome Emmanuel to the show.
Hi.
Hey, Emmanuel. Hey, how awesome to see you there. Thanks for joining us this week.
Glad to be here. Such a pleasure to be on the live stream with you guys.
That's awesome. It's really great to have you here. I've been following you for a little while. I really like a lot of the things that you're doing with your YouTube channel.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So you garden down in Florida, right?
Yeah, I grow down here in South Florida, in the southern part of Florida.
South Florida there. So the weather's pretty nice then?
Yep, we're currently in the high 70s. We did experience one day that it went down a little bit lower, but this entire week we've been in the high 70s and 80s.
Oh, yeah, I know the rest of us around the country are probably pretty jealous that you got all that really nice weather, but I'm sure that gardening in Florida presents its kind of challenges and all of that. So, how about you tell us, what was your first gardening experience? I know you're pretty young, but I'm sure that you've got a pretty good garden story, right?
Yeah, so my gardening experience happened around 7 years ago when I was 7 years old. It was actually my dad. So we went on to a local Lowe's we have around here, and he went to go grab something in the store. And I stayed in the garden center and I was just warming around looking at the plants. And then I found one that I really, really loved, which was a red snapdragon. And my dad purchased it for me and I planted it out in the backyard in a little area he told me I could plant it in. And then I was so like fascinated by the growth rate of it, how the flowers, the intricate design of it. And so I just wanted to learn more. And that's when I just started jump starting into gardening. And it's just been great ever since.
You started your first garden with your dad when you were about 7 years old?
Yeah, so it was like it took my dad like about a year to like give up his lawn because my dad is that type of person who doesn't like giving up a lot of his backyard space. And so it took him
Right.
about a year because I did a lot of container gardening the first few times. And once he saw that I was developing a little bit of experience, he gave me a little area like about a year later.
Okay, awesome, awesome. So what do you like most about gardening?
What I like most about gardening, it's the like peaceful environment per se, as well as it teaches you a lot of responsibilities. That's what I always tell everybody, that gardening is a hobby. It could be a career for certain other people or certain gardeners. But what I love most is that it teaches responsibilities towards some gardeners, as well as the peaceful environment. So it's like you're never stressed out, or there's no any like sad emotion or anything. You're just at peace when you're gardening.
Yeah, that's kind of something we were talking about there with our last guest as well too, is that, we can enjoy all of the fun things that we get to grow in the garden and all of that, but probably the best thing we get out of it is that peace of mind, that garden therapy, as I say. But yeah, that's one of the great things about it. So, what are some of your favorite plants to grow? Growing down there in Florida, so you probably got some pretty interesting things down there, right?
Yeah, so right now, since I'm dedicated into growing my own food, it has to be cabbage. Cabbage has to be one of my favorite vegetables to grow, especially since I don't deal with a lot of pests or diseases or any type of critters after it. So cabbage has
Awesome.
to be number one because I always have success growing it. And when it comes to harvest time, it's just a delight seeing how big the head of cabbages get, as well as like any type of brassica out there. I always tend to have the biggest success with brassicas in general.
Oh wow. See, that's completely opposite of what my gardening experience is. Brassicas always seem to give me the challenge in the garden every single year. So my goal this year is to hopefully get some really nice cabbages out of the garden and improve on my broccoli that I've been getting figured out here for sure. So what are some of your least favorite plants to grow in the garden?
Well, there's always that little tiny plant that I don't really like growing, which one of them has to be potatoes, which when I ever tell somebody that, they're like surprised. But I guess it's because they can't really grow down in my climate, but I've tried multiple times and failed at it. But potatoes is just not my forte. It's just I never really had success growing them in containers or in the ground, amending them. I never have the success with growing potatoes. I did have a little harvest one year, but it wasn't the best. The potatoes came a little bit wonky shaped. And so potatoes has to be one of the least favorite ones I like to grow in the garden. And follow up off of that probably has to be beetroot because it's just I don't have the a lot of patience for it, but also because beetroot does require a lot of, let's just say, like fertilizing so it can get that nice like beetroot shape.
Right, right. Yeah, I love to grow container potatoes. Most of my gardening is all kind of small spaces. I've got a patio and all of that. And so I grow container potatoes in big, large containers. And I always find that each year that my potato plants are always really awesome. I get these big, beautiful, awesome, awesome plants. But the thing about potatoes is it's always a mystery about what you've got
Yeah.
down underneath of the soil, and so you take and spend all of that time growing these potatoes, and then you wait until and you wait and wait and you get there finally and you make that harvest and you pull them out and you end up with these little tiny things sometimes, which happen.
Yeah.
I've had a I've had a few good years though too, where I've gotten some really nice ones, but I'm sure that they do kind of present that challenge, like you said, for your climate.
Yeah.
So I want to ask you, what inspires you, and you're a young man, to get started in gardening and to start doing that on YouTube and making YouTube videos for.
So I'm 16 years old, so I'm pretty young. So one of the youngest gardeners out on the social media platforms. But what inspires me has to be the audience members or people who follow me, because it's just something I love doing. I've always loved educating people on gardening as well as getting some things done in the garden. So it's like a 2-for-1 deal. And whenever I upload videos or they go on Premiere, I always have multiple different people on the Premiere or in the comment section always inspire me to do more, as well as always leaving these amazing kind comments. And that just kind of gives me more like enthusiasm or more passion to move forward, because although the first like year of me doing YouTube was quite a bit of a struggle, especially during school wise, because people, let's just say kids, weren't ever so friendly towards that. And so I had to deal with a lot of issues in school and everything. And so once I just like had my head in the game, I
Yes.
was like, my success is not going to be determined by other people if not by me. And so I was like, let me
Right.
just go ahead and move forward, because I want to do gardening is a future career I'm taking. And so I just was like, let's just move forward. And seems to be a lot of gardeners were pitching in support, and they were shouting me out, and it just made my gardening channel just boost up, and it's currently still boosting up. And it's just like astonishing to see how many people are passionate about gardening, as well as learning that other younger people are getting into gardening. And it's
Hmm.
just really fun to see that, and it just makes me want to do more.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, too, one of the things that's really cool for us in the gardening community to see our younger people like yourself. And we also had a guest last week, when he's like 7 or 8 year old. Nathan from Growing with Nathan with us too. So it's really cool to see you young guys getting into gardening and doing that. And especially again, too, like what you're talking about with the community and everything. That's one of the things that was really inspiring to me as I just got into doing my channel for fun. I just wanted to kind of document what I was doing in my garden spaces. But then when I started seeing this encouragement from everybody else, just really, really got me going even further with what I'm doing, to where, here I am today, making this show, Let's Get Growing, and all of that. And that's really thanks to the garden community as well, too. So let's see, you have done some collaborations with other gardeners. Do you got any favorite collaborations you've done recently?
I never really have a favorite. I always have great fun collaborating with other gardeners. I haven't done any recent collaborations just yet, since everybody is just jumping right into the spring season coming right around the corner. But I do
Yeah.
have some fun ones coming up soon. But I will have to say, one of my like most interesting collaborations I had to do was with a young kid called Eden. He has an amazing channel as well. He is 16 years old as well, and he knows a
Okay.
lot of stuff, and his garden is fantastic. We did a collaboration with him on my channel, like I believe twice. And it's just been fun, as well as with another gardener called Seema from Garden a Little. She is just an amazing gardener as well. So like there's just so many gardening channels out there that I just want to like expose to the audience or the community, so they can have their moment, so they could show everybody what they know. So I never really have a favorite collaboration. If not,
Right.
all of them were a pleasure to work with, but definitely the person who like inspired me or like made me more surprised in a way was Eden, because he was the same like age as me, and we kind of connected through the same thing.
Absolutely. Yeah. What a great answer, though, too. Everybody, I mean, I love all of my collaborations. I love to be able to connect with all the different gardeners and all of that out there in the gardening community. And it's really awesome to see the sort of things that you're doing. I did watch one of your collaborations that I really enjoyed, someone that I've followed for a long time, was David the Good. And that was a
Yes.
really great interview that you did with him.
Yeah, David the Good is a good friend of mine's. He is an amazing gardener, survivor gardener. His journey started down here in Florida, like not too far away from where I'm located. And it was such a pleasure to get to know him. I know we were scheduling a collaboration about like a year ago, but things got really difficult on his end. So I just told him to just like, it's okay, just do what you got to do, and we'll just get back to it. And then one day he emailed me and he was like, hey, I'm heading down in South Florida in the Fort Lauderdale area. Are you interested in coming over? And we could do like a few videos in collaboration. And I was like, for sure. And he is like he is what you see in his videos is what he is in person. He doesn't
Yeah.
play like that fantasy of I'm one person on camera and I'm a different person off camera. No, it literally transpires through the video, and it was just such a delight meeting him. He knows a lot of stuff, and he just is so funny. His personality is so outgoing, and it was just a collaboration that I was so anticipated to have. And when it was released, a lot of people loved it, and I just can't wait to do more with him.
That's awesome. Yeah. Hopefully someday we're going to get him on the show here too, as well too, because I really like him. Like you said, he's got a really great personality. He's fun. I also love some of the music that he does and the
Yeah.
songs and things like that he does on his channel and everything. He brings a lot of different things to his channel, and that's for sure. One of the last things I wanted to ask you about though too is I saw you put out a video recently where you're starting your own seed shop. You wanted to let everybody know
Yes.
about your seed shop and where they can find that if they want to go and purchase some of your seeds you've got there.
Yeah, so it was definitely a working progress or a project on a hold. It's definitely one of the dreams I had since I started my YouTube channel. I always wanted to have a seed business under my name, especially ever since like MI Gardener or like Epic Gardening, they are branching out really, really amazingly. And I was like, I just want to share my passion as well as the work I grow in my garden to other people. So the seeds I provide, they're all straight from my garden. There's no funny business going on with it. They're just harvested, dried, and then they're shipped to you guys. So my seed business was opened up about a week ago. It's called Garden Grown Seeds, and I don't really have an official website yet since I just started. And so if you're interested in purchasing a order with the company, you could email me at gardengrownseeds@gmail.com, and you send me an email on what you're interested in growing or what you're interested in purchasing. I'll give you the prices and everything, and then we move forward from there. So it's definitely a project that I was really excited to announce. A lot of people seem to love it, and so we're just awaiting to see where it takes us.
Awesome. That's really great. And I really like to see how you're really developing this whole game plan that you have with this knowledge of gardening that you're gaining and to be able to take it into some really great future projects. And I really hope that you succeed. And all the gardeners out there following and watching this channel, go and check out your channel as well as send you a message and maybe see what kind of seeds that you have. And maybe you can start growing some of Emmanuel's seeds that he's harvesting from his garden. That's a really great thing to be able to trade and do seeds from other people's gardens and things like that too, to kind
Yeah.
of carry on those different varieties and everything. So again, Manuel, thank you so much for taking the time out of your Saturday to join with us here on the Let's Get Growing show. It's been a really awesome conversation with you here.
No problem. It was such a pleasure joining on here. It was such a fun experience, and I can't wait to meet new people out there and create new gardening friends. So I'm super, super excited, and it's been an absolute amazing experience.
Excellent. Excellent. Well, we'll see you again soon. You take care. Thank you.
All right. Bye.
Hey gardeners, thanks for tuning in to our show today. We'll be right back at it here in just a moment. I just wanted to take a second here to highlight our regular videos and features here on the Urban Gardener channel. Our weekly garden journals, and our incredible featured visits. All right, and now it's time for our featured guest this week. All right, this week's featured guest is Bevin Cohen from Small House Farm. Bevin is an award-winning author, herbalist, owner of Small House Farm, and host of the popular Seeds and Weeds podcast. Bevin offers workshops and lectures across the country on the benefits of living closer to the land through seeds, herbs, and locally grown food. He is a food and garden writer whose work has appeared in numerous publications, including Mother Earth News, Modern Farmer Magazine, and the Baker Creek Heirloom Seed Company catalog. And Bevin is the author or editor of more than 10 books, including Saving Our Seeds and The Artisan Herbalist. Awesome. So let's welcome Bevin to the Let's Get Growing show. Hey, how are you doing?
I'm doing great, Enoch. How are you doing today?
Really awesome to have you here on my show.
Oh, thanks for having me, man. I'm excited to be here.
Excellent. Yeah, we actually, I got to do Bevin's Seeds and Weeds podcast with him a few weeks back. That was a really fun experience. So I wanted to thank you for having me on your show as well.
Oh, man, I appreciate you being on the show. We got a ton of feedback about you. Everybody was so thrilled to have you there. You did it was a segment called Ask a Gardener, and folks had sent in their gardening questions for you to answer. People were thrilled with it. We might have to invite you back on the show, Enoch. People just loved having you there.
Awesome. That's really awesome to hear. Excellent. So, man, we've got so much to talk about. You've done so many great things in the gardening community. Again, as we've mentioned here in your bio, author, you've done all sorts of different books as well, too. In fact, I've got your From Our Seeds and Their Keepers book. I love this book, and it's one of the things that, we're all about here on the Let's Get Growing show is kind of sharing garden stories and talking with different gardeners and getting their experiences from all over. And this book is just filled with some really great stories about seeds and seed saving and everything too. So really do enjoy this book. And again, I encourage anybody out there too to go check out some of the books that you have. Anything about that book in particular you'd like to share with us?
Yeah, man, I really appreciate you even bringing it up. That was my very first book. It came out in 2018, and we have done a number of books since then, like you mentioned, but at the end of the day, I think that one's still my favorite. It was so much fun to work on, because what it is, like you said, is just stories. It's about seeds and the people that keep them, Of course, when we save these seeds, we save these stories, and we want to pass those along as well. But the people that save the seeds also have stories to tell. So that was really what we were going for with that book, is to collect as many stories as we could and just put them in a place where they would be there forever. Because if we don't save and share the seeds and the stories, they could be lost. And we don't want that to happen. So that book, that was a blast. Loved writing that book.
How about your first seed story, the Cherokee Trail of Tears Black Bean? How about share a little bit about that story with us?
Sure. That's the most sentimental seed for me out of them all, because it was the very first seed that I ever saved. Now, that story came to be, I was at a place here in Midland by me here in Michigan called the Chippewa Nature Center. And the Chippewa Nature Center has an heirloom garden where they grow different fruits and vegetables that would be somewhat historically accurate to what people would have grown in this area in the 1800s. And, this is well before we had Small House Farm or anything. I used to take my family there to visit on Homestead Sundays, and you could learn all sorts of different traditional skills. They'd be doing things like churning butter and working in the gardens and that sort of thing. And we'd come to visit, and I was just fascinated with the garden and all these old varieties that have these signs say, at the little wood burn sign, it'd say something like Bountiful Bush Bean, 1893 or whatever. And I'd be like, wow, what does this even mean? And the garden keeper explained to me one day, he says, these are heirloom seeds, Bevin. These are seeds that have been saved and passed down, and I was like, oh, that's really new to me. It's such a foreign concept. And he says, let me explain it to you in a different way. And he pulled some of those bean pods out of that vine and he stuck it in my hand. And he said, you take these seeds home, you grow them, save your seeds and share them with your friends. And that was the impetus for everything that's happened in my life. That moment in time literally changed my life when he handed those seeds to me. So that's something that I try to do for other people, sharing these seeds, getting the seeds into the, other people's hands so they could grow them and appreciate how wonderful it is to grow your own vegetables and to save those seeds and then to share that joy with everyone else.
Yeah, that was probably one of the cool things I liked about our previous interview there with Emmanuel is, he's a young man who's out there learning and gaining all this great gardening experience and everything, and then setting off on his first young business adventure by, saving his own seeds and then, sharing those and passing those along with other people as well too.
I
It's a
was so
really
impressed with Emmanuel. I was sitting here backstage watching his interview. What a groovy guy. What a cool kid, man, for sure.
Yeah, he's great. I really enjoy his show and his YouTube channel and everything. And again, too, one of those things we featured another young man last week as well, too, who works with his dad and putting together a garden. And it's just one of the things I like most is being able to share the kind of garden experience with younger folks and be able to get them encouraged along that sort of line to learn about growing and maintaining gardens and everything. It's really, when you see someone young who really gets it and gets that passion, it's just a real amazing thing.
It is. It's the most important thing, Enoch. I agree with that. You and I, we've only got so much time left here on Earth. It's getting those kids excited is the most important thing that we could do. Get them out there, get them planting those seeds. That's the future, right?
Yeah, that's absolutely the future. I did real quick, about your book, this one here though too. I wanted to share with everybody a really great quote that came from you out of the book. And when it comes to seeds, you said, "Within each seed is the miracle of life, the food that sustains us, our ancestors, and our cultures. Within each tiny bundle lies the history of our planet and its people. When we save our seeds, we save all of these things, and the simple act of sharing a seed from one hand to the next is surely one of the most significant and revolutionary acts of our time." That's just an amazing quote. When I read that, I was just like, wow, I was blown away. That is really what it's all about there for sure.
Well, absolutely. Not to sound too woo-woo, I suppose, but saving and sharing seeds is probably one of the most powerful things that we can do, right?
Yeah, absolutely. That's for sure. And I again, really, really enjoy the work that you do when it comes to that. And wanted to kind of take a step back a little bit here, though, too, into your past. And why don't you share with everybody what got you started in gardening?
Ooh. Well, so I was raised by my grandmother, and we lived in a little apartment on the edge of town. So I didn't have a garden growing up, but we would grow excuse me, we would grow radishes. That was my big thing, was growing radishes in little flower pots. It was fascinating to me, and a radish is a great thing for a beginner gardener because they produce so quickly. It doesn't take long between seed to harvest, and kids, they don't have as much patience. So it was a nice fast-paced vegetable for me. But also I was one of those kids that loved eating radishes. So it was it's a perfect win-win. Loved growing those radishes. But we happened to be on the edge of town. So we were like right up against acres of forest. I was a kid. It seemed like it went on forever, right? And none of that forest is even there anymore. It's all subdivisions and things. So the kids that live in those apartments now aren't as lucky as I was, I suppose. But I would spend my days wandering through the forest, enjoying all of the things that Mother Nature has to offer, listening to the birds and eating the berries and that sort of thing. And so at a young age, I was just infused with this fascination with everything that Mother Nature could do for us, the wonders of plants, and that's just something that stuck with me through my whole life. As I got older and I had an opportunity to have my own home, one of the first things I tried to do was grow some tomatoes in a pot. You got to grow your own tomatoes. Nobody wants to grow them at the grocery store, or buy them at the grocery store. That's not good for nothing, right?
Right, exactly.
So, and as a beginner gardener years ago, well, I didn't do very well, right? As beginners with anything in life, we tend to fail more than anything. But the more we fail, the more that we learn. And as long as we can just learn to persevere through that and accept those mistakes, which Mother Nature will teach us season after season, right? Every time we're out there, we have an opportunity to learn something new. And it really has just snowballed out of control for me. What really, really sent it home for me as a lifelong gardener was when I had children. To come back to talking about kids again. When I had that opportunity to take my oldest son, now today's his birthday, Elijah's birthday. He's 14 today. But when he was just a little guy, we'd take him out there and he would dig in the soil and that sort of thing. And there's just something magical about that, and it just, so that's it. This is all I want to do from now on. Find any excuse I can to get away from work and out into the garden.
That's right, for sure. So let's see. So I know you mentioned radishes there is one of the first things and all of that, but currently, what are some of the things that you really enjoy growing the most in your garden?
Oh, man. Okay. So every year I tend to be obsessed with something new, for a long time, it was corn. I was really just fascinated with growing corn. There's just something special about that. But we have limited space here, and corn takes up quite a bit of space, and it needs full sun. And I have limited full sun areas as well. So we kind of had to make some cuts on some things. Last year, I was all about Asian greens. Baker Creek Heirloom Seed, Jer, that owns Baker Creek, he's also fascinated with Asian fruits and vegetables. So through their catalog, they offer a lot of different Asian greens. I bought them all last year, every single thing that they offered. And that's what I planted everywhere. And it was delicious and nutritious, and it was wonderful. This year, we're just starting to plant our seeds. And already I find myself completely obsessed with eggplants.
Yes.
Oh my gosh, there's so many wonderful varieties of eggplants. My buddy Mehmet, he owns 2 Seeds in a Pod heirloom seed company, and he's from Turkey, and which is where a lot of eggplants were domesticated and developed. And so he has turned me on to some great ways to cook eggplants, roasting them over fire and all this sort of stuff. And once you start to appreciate the flavors of something, you want to start growing it, right? So I am pretty much obsessed with eggplants, all sorts of different shapes and sizes of them. I got already started, they're little guys right now, under lights on heat mats. But eggplants all the way this year, Enoch. That's what it's going to be about.
So I guess that answers our what's new in the garden question, but I love growing eggplants as well. And again, I'm one of those people that, when I find something I like to grow, it doesn't matter necessarily if I enjoy them or not. So I might have to try some new ways of cooking and preparing eggplant. Maybe I can get some new ways of trying to enjoy it. It hasn't been one I've really cared for too much, but I love the plants so much. They're big, beautiful plants with these amazing leaves and just the way they grow. And then you get these really cool pods. I kind of find it similar to like pepper plants. That was my first real obsession, was pepper plants. And I like them because, each of the plants and varieties have their own different temperaments to them, and they grow kind of differently. And you get some pods that'll grow straight up. You'll have some that grow down. You got all these sort of things. And the pods are just amazing, when you get all these different varieties of pods. And I find some similar fascination when it comes to eggplants and everything. So I've grown out a couple of varieties over the last couple of years, and I usually just give those to friends and family and people who really do enjoy them, so that I can get the joy of actually growing them in my garden as well too. So I really love eggplants too as well.
What got me going with eggplants, because at first, your experience with eggplants might be for some folks that, purple blob they sell at the grocery store, and it's kind of bland, a little bitter. It's not really the most enjoyable thing. And before I started growing my eggplants, that was what I knew about them. But then I got Cookstown orange, which is a different species. So most of the eggplants that we're familiar with are a species domesticated in Asia. But this eggplant was actually Solanum aethiopicum. It's an African eggplant, right? And it's green when you harvest it, and it ripens to orange. A little bit more firm in the flesh, a little easier to work with. And that was the first eggplant that I enjoyed working with in the kitchen. And I said, oh, maybe there's more to eggplants than what I'm used to. Let's expand our horizons. And then we started digging into that diversity like you're talking about. And there's so many wonderful choices. There's an eggplant for everybody, I believe.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I'm going to eventually find the one that's for me. That's for sure.
Got to keep looking.
Got to keep looking. Got to keep on growing and all of that. So when you're out there and you've been learning about all these different plants and everything, are there any ones that you find difficult to grow? Kind of what our question of this week is, are there any sort of challenges that you have in the garden?
Oh, yeah. Oh man, I mean, come on, that's what gardening's all about, is challenges. Sometimes I feel like I'm looking for them. I find so many of them when I'm out there gardening. one of the challenges that we have here at Small House is we have limited space and we have limited sun. So I really have to plan well in advance to make sure I can utilize my space and light to maximum efficiency, right? And the other problem that I have that goes along with that is I'm a little obsessive about things. And let's say I want to grow eggplants. Now suddenly I want to grow all of the eggplants. And I know that I don't have the space for that, right? So possibly my greatest issue is self-control. I want to start my seeds too early. I want to start too many of them. And then when I transplant them out, I want to put them too close together because I got to fit all these things in there, right? So at the end of the day, I'm my greatest enemy in the garden, for sure. But if we're going to talk about a crop that challenges me, well, no, we're going to come back to corn. Corn is one that I've struggled with a lot. Again, because I don't have a lot of space and sun. So, you know, what worked for me at the end of the day is I've read the book, Buffalo Bird Woman's Garden, which is an incredible book. They sit down with Buffalo Bird Woman, who was a Hidasta native, and they collect a lot of her memories about the way that they grew things and all these things. Long ago, and they actually drew out her description of how they grew their Three Sisters garden with the mounds. So now the corn, beets, and squash together. And they drew out all of her measurements and everything the way that she described it in the book. And so we replicated that. We did a YouTube video about it. To this day, it's our most popular video. We made it a couple years ago, and it's just like clocking in the views all the time. We sat down and we replicated what she described, and it was the most successful corn I've ever grown, the best bean harvest, and the best squash. All three of those crops outperformed anything we've done historically here. When I learned to get out of my own way and listen to somebody that knew what they were talking about, solved all my problems.
And you know, let's talk about the Three Sisters method. That is a really popular one out there. You get a lot of questions about that, and I've tried over the years, and I'm, you know, succeeded eventually. I think one of my first challenges though is timing things right. You know, when it came down to it, I put my beans in probably too early before letting those corn stalks grow up, and boy, you get some pole beans trying to take over your whole corn. They'll pull all that stuff down eventually and everything. So you want some good sturdy stalks already grown as you're getting those beans going, because they'll take off.
There's two tricks to that. One, make sure you get your corn well established before you plant your beans. But what I've encountered through research is that a lot of these traditional Three Sisters combinations use half runner beans as opposed to full on pole beans. So ones that would only actually grow vines that were 3 or 4 foot tall were most commonly used in the Three Sisters combination. So that's an adjustment that we made as well, that I found to really make a big difference, because those beans, especially when the corn comes in and everything, you know, they start to fight for the light. They're fighting towards that sun, and they will. A bean plant will pull a corn down like nobody's business. It's pretty wild. But using a shorter vining plant is going to definitely help curb that, you know, issue.
That was definitely a good idea when it comes to that. One year I had all these would have had all of these great corn stalks like I usually get each year, but this year I ended up with just a wall of beans, and it was quite a sight to see when you kind of get down to it. But
well, at the end of the day, though, you had a wall of beans, so that's a win.
That's for sure. That's for sure. I do really love getting some good corn out of my corns that I grow each year too. And similar to you though too, as well, is that, you know, I've got a limited space. You know, I can get plenty of light in certain areas and everything, but, you know, making sure that you're able to put enough corn stalks together so that they can pollinate themselves, you know, is a really important thing as well too.
Right. Absolutely.
So let's get moving on to what inspired you after gardening and all of that to start writing. And you've done some really good writing where I found you for the very first time, found your name anyway, was in Mother Earth News. I read one of your articles, you know, a while back ago. And that's when I started following what you were doing and everything. Plus, you also, again, you've written and done things for Baker Creek Heirloom Seed Company, as well as Modern Farmer, and, you know, of course, your books that we were talking about. But what inspired you to become a garden writer?
Well, it was a lady named Sylvia, actually, and I talk about her in that book you got right there from Our Seeds and Their Keepers. I met Sylvia. She lived down in Kentucky. She was an older lady, and we connected over a corn that her family had grown. And she was really interested in learning more about the history of this corn, and I was more than happy to get in on this too and learn more about it with her. And we were like seed detectives. We hooked up with the University of Kentucky, all these things, and we traced this corn that her family grew way back to like folks in covered wagons. Like we were really able to connect hand to hand, person to person through documentation to trace this corn way back into her family's history, which was super exciting stuff. And we would talk on the phone, Sylvia and I, all the time, as you know, as the story was developing. And one day on the phone, you know, Sylvia says to me, she says, you know, Bevin, I'm so thankful that you like to hear these stories about this corn. You know, my family is really not interested in this sort of thing. I try to sit my kids down and talk about corn. They don't care about that. Grandkids have no interest in these old stories. You're the only person that seems to care about this corn. And that hit me, man, hard. That's heavy, right? Because not only did we talk about this corn, but through these stories, I mean, Sylvia would tell me about her memories as growing up and the way her dad would care for the garden, or taking the corn to the mill and having it milled into corn flour. I mean, just so many stories were coming out of this corn. And it hit me that if I didn't save this story, it would be gone. It would be gone.
Right.
So that's why we started writing that book. And, you know, people really enjoyed the book and it kind of took off. And then people said, boy, I wish this book told me how to save my seeds. You know, these are great stories, but I want to learn more about how to save seeds. And there's a bunch of books out there on how to do that. So there's a bunch of books out there. And they said, no, we want you to teach us how to save these seeds. So then my next book, Saving Our Seeds, came out. We worked on that. And then Mother Earth News was like, we want to run an excerpt from this book in our magazine. So then we developed that relationship. And just like all things in life, you know, once I learned to get out of my own way, things just kind of snowballed into where we're at now. I got my newest books coming out in a few weeks here.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's been a wild ride, you know, and it all started with Sylvia and that corn.
Yeah, it's kind of great how those sort of stories and those things that we have that where we got started with all of that sort of stuff. You also did a book called The Artisan Herbalist. And what is your most recent book besides the new one that you have coming out?
So The Artisan Herbalist came out in 2021, and that book is about growing and foraging herbs to craft into teas and tinctures and medicinal oils and that sort of thing. You know, here at Small House, we're lucky. We're across the street from 1,100 acres of forest. So we do a lot of foraging out there for herbs, for medicinals, and for our food, in addition to the herbs and things that we grow here at the farm. So that's kind of what that book is about. And through the book, as we talk about harnessing these herbs, gathering these herbs and making them into medicinals, we talk about infusing herbs and oils to then make salves and lotions and balms and that sort of thing, which is something that we do here at Small House. We cold press our own seed and nut oils, sunflower seeds and hemp seeds and that sort of thing, that we then use in the herbal products that we make. And my publisher and I were talking about it after The Artisan Herbalist came out. He says, you kind of reference this idea in the book, but you don't go into depth on it. And I said, well, I would love to, you know, talk about that more. So The Complete Guide to Seed and Nut Oils was the book that came from that, which is a book that, you know, we've been pressing oil for 10 years now, Enoch. And I wish that this book existed 10 years ago, because there was no literature on the topic when we got started. So it was really hit and miss. So to be able to take all of my experiences, all of my failures and successes, and condense them into a book that we can share with people so they can learn about this and how easy it is to produce your own healthy seed and nut oils right at home. It's just really cool to be able to have that opportunity.
It's kind of what it takes sometimes, is, you know, some experiences that we have and everything before, you know, like you said, when there's certain subjects that don't have that much information on them. So, well, you know, get out there, learn about it, figure it out, because someone down the line is going to want to take your experiences so that they can figure those sort of things out as well, too. And you found a really good subject there, too, to be able to just really kind of, you know, focus in on some of those things that you've learned and be able to share that with everybody else.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah. That's really a good thing there too. So also, you mentioned too, and that written and done things for Baker Creek Heirloom Seed Company, I can maybe do just a little forward promo for our show, Let's Get Growing here too, is that Jer is going to be one of our guests here coming up in a couple of weeks. And so that's something that everybody
Nice.
can look forward to. I really like Baker Creek Heirloom Seed Company. They're one of my favorites as far as, and I'm sure a lot of other gardeners out there as well too love to get into those heirloom seeds and everything when it comes to Baker Creek. How did you get started working and writing for them as well?
So years ago, 2015 or so ish, they had a program called Gardens Across America where they were distributing unique seeds to different folks that were interested in growing them to grow and kind of document how the plants grew and take some pictures or whatever. It was a way to kind of share and preserve seeds, but also kind of a way to market these new varieties that were going to be available in the catalog. And we ended up a part of that program. We grew some incredible beans, the Fagiolo, Angelo, and Piros. These beautiful Italian pole beans is what we grew for them. Not only beautiful seeds, beautiful beans, super productive. They were winners all the way, right?
Yeah.
So we grew these beans out for Baker Creek and sent them back to them or whatever. And they must have appreciated what we had done because then they reached out later and asked me to come and speak at the Heirloom Expo that they do every year in California. So that was kind of how we first connected. And then, they caught wind of, my interest in writing, my interest in preserving seed stories. Our missions really lined up so much that I have been having the opportunity to research and write some of the seed stories that actually end up in the whole seed catalog, which is pretty awesome. It's the largest printed seed catalog ever made, and it's got stories in it that I wrote. That's pretty cool.
It really is an amazing, it's what we'll talk about in this interview with Jared too, is about the whole seed catalog. Again, like you said, it's one of the most popular catalogs there are out there. They sell out of them anymore, and it's got to be really something to know that you're a part of that whole project as well too.
It's surreal, dude. It's surreal. One year when we went out to California, they build this iconic squash tower every year. That folks probably that are listening in are very familiar with. And one year I actually got to help build it.
Yeah.
Oh, and once I was standing up on the squash tower, doing a little photo op so folks could take, I was like, I made it. This is it. There's nowhere else to go from here, right?
Exactly.
I can retire in style now.
It's something really awesome to see, is this big giant like you said, it's like a big old pyramid, rounded pyramid of all of these different varieties of squash and melons and things, and just really awesome to see. It really kind of takes you back when you walk into the room and you see that thing for sure. And it's one of my favorite things. When I first started doing my whole YouTube channel and all of that, that was my goal at the end of the year of growing and documenting my gardening experience and everything, was to go to the Heirloom Exposition. So I got to go to my first one in 2017. And after that first one, I was totally hooked and went back again for 2018, went back again for 2019. But then the whole world changed after that. And so we haven't had one of those Heirloom Expositions for a few years now, and it's going to be really, really exciting to get out and go see one. Finally, this year, they'll have their 10th anniversary of the National Heirloom Exposition, this time in Southern California. So do you have plans to make it down there for this one?
Yes, I will be there. Ventura, California, I believe is the town, outside LA somewhere.
Ventura County Fairgrounds.
Yep, I will be there, my friend, most certainly. It's a little different vibe in Southern California, than up north, but I'm sure it's going to be a great event just the same.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be something interesting to see. The other location in Santa Rosa up in Northern California is really a great place as it is, brings in a lot of wonderful people, and it's really a cool experience But like you said, it's going to be different to kind of see what it's like to be outside of such a large city like that, and Los Angeles is a place that I've gotten to make many trips to, and it's one of my favorite places to go when it comes to gardening and talking to different gardeners there. It really is like a garden city, USA. There's so many people who are just interested in that. So again, it'll be really something to see. We definitely look forward to seeing you there at the exposition this year. We'll have to do a on-site interview or something like that for everybody. So
I dig it. Man, for sure. So make sure everybody that's listening in, put this on your calendars to come to this event, because it is one of the greatest garden experiences you will ever have. It's an incredible time for sure.
Yeah. If you love gardening, have any sort of passion for it at all, it is, like you said, it's like the world exposition type of thing for gardeners. It's the place you want to be, and that's I believe in mid-September coming up here this year too. So definitely check that out and come down there. Maybe you'll get to meet Bevin and myself and a bunch of other just really wonderful gardeners too. So now I want to ask you a little bit too, because this is really, again, as we talked about at the beginning of the interview, is that I got to appear with you on your Seeds and Weeds podcast. So what kind of inspired you to get into the whole podcasting world?
So a couple of different things. One is I don't sit still very well. I have this need to keep busy. So every winter I find myself starting some sort of new project. One winter it was the YouTube channel. We started that up because I just needed something to do. And so that was kind of what happened with this podcast. I thought, I got a little bit of downtime. Let's see what I can do with it. And I thought, I'm always looking for new ways to connect with people, to reach out and just connect with other like-minded people to see what we can do with that, so we can just kind of share our mutual love of plants, really. So I was like, well, let's try this podcast. Let's try just a straight up audio format and see how we can do with that. My other inspiration, I guess you could say, for this was I've been a guest on a lot of podcasts, dozens and dozens of them, it seems, over the years, with the books and all that sort of thing. And I love it. I love it very much. It's great to have that opportunity to meet new people and to share my ideas and my stories with folks and that sort of thing. But I find that all of them are very long format style interviews, which are difficult for me in particular because I don't sit still very well. Same problem, right? So I was like, what if we could take the basic idea of a podcast and distill it down to its bare bones essence and really just try to get to the point with everything as much as we can. And so I was like, let's try that. So that's how Seeds and Weeds podcast came to be. They're 15 to 20 minute episodes. Our longest one so far has been 20 minutes, which is long enough for me to have to sit still and do. But when we do interviews, we try to make fun segments. We do like kind of games, garden related games with people, trivia questions. It's a lot like this show in a way where you have the different segments, so we can kind of keep up with the more modern short attention span, for sure. And when we do straight up interviews, I call it 5 questions and I ask 5 questions. That's it. I took the 20 something interviews that I've been on the other side of the microphone and distilled it down to the 5 essential questions. And those are the questions I ask the guests that we have. And it's been great. We've had, superstar, right? And we've had, farmers and gardeners and herbalists and foragers and just all sorts of groovy plant people that come on the show, talk about why they love plants, what they're doing in their communities to help other people love plants. And then that's it, and it's a bi-weekly show right now. We're dropping them every 2 weeks. It's been a blast. It's so much fun.
Oh yeah, I've been really enjoying this show here too, and our whole opportunity we have of getting to talk to all the different gardeners from whether, like I said, the smaller channel gardeners on YouTube, our Instagram gardeners. There's so many great people I follow there too. So, and then of course, there's just some really great people like yourself who, it just makes for a really good interview to kind of set the whole stage for the whole show and everything. Who are some of the people that you've got coming up or you've had on the show?
Well, we had John Jackson on the show recently, who runs Comfort Farms down in Georgia. Real interesting character for sure. So Comfort Farms is sort of a farm-based rehabilitation center for veterans. So they bring these folks in that, have recently come back from serving in the military, who are trying to adjust to civilian life, and he helps them through work on the farm. It's really, really fascinating stuff. John's quite a storyteller too, so it was great to have him on the show. We recently had Mel Mutterspa on the show. She's an herbalist. She runs a company called the Herbalist Path. So she came on the show to talk about a new program that they're offering there through her business, mother-daughter type herbalism wellness seminar type of thing. It was pretty cool. She's a really interesting lady. We had her, much like how you came on the show to answer people's gardening questions. She came on the show for a segment we called Ask an Herbalist, where people send in questions about herbs and medicine and sort of stuff. That was really good. We got coming up next, we're going to have Mike and Erica, which are personal friends of mine, that own Nature and Nurture Seeds here in Michigan. It's a small heirloom seed company, and they grow the seeds that they offer. Really, really cool couple, really, really great seeds. So we're going to have them on the show. We're going to do kind of a gardening dating game style question game with them. I thought that would be fun. Yeah. I got to mix it up, keep it entertaining, not only for our listeners, but also for myself. I got to keep it fresh, I guess. But we just had all sorts of great folks. It's really interesting to start the podcast. Of course, I reached out to folks that I know, like yourself. It was like, hey, you want to come and do this thing? I'd love to have you. And now that the show is kind of catching on, folks are starting to reach out to me, interested to being on the program. So the sky's the limit. It seems like lots of people want to check out the show. Lots of people want to be on it. So I'm just excited to see what the next year is going to be. Again, I wish I kind of would have started it sooner, because it's so much fun. I've been just having a great time with it.
Yeah, I feel the same way. I came up with this whole concept for the Let's Get Growing show a couple of years ago. And it was when I found the StreamYard platform we use here. And I was like, man, how could we really kind of make something that's just a little bit unique to the gardening community, and to be able to provide really cool gardening stories and get to interview some of the really awesome people out in the gardening community that I've gotten to know or I follow and all of that. And it's been really, again, like you're saying, just a really wonderful experience to process the show and do all the things that we're doing here, and to be able to put it together for everybody. And again, it's just I wish I'd gotten into it a couple of years ago when I first started it, because it's been so much fun so far over these last few weeks. So I'm really looking forward to where it goes to in the future, and all of the other really great people we get to bring onto our show as well. So let's see. I think we've got a couple of questions here from the audience. We'll throw those at you here real quick.
All right, here we go.
We've got Jay Dixon for Bevin. I noticed that you have grown your business into value-added products, consultations, and seed products. How did you grow into those areas?
That's a good question. Well, would it cheat if I just said organically? We grew into them organically. Things just kind of come to be, So when we started Small House Farm in 2014, one of the first things that we did was start cold pressing oil, right? That was something that I was just really interested in trying. And so I'm pressing all this oil at home, and I have no gauge for quality. I don't really even know what I'm doing at this point. And there was a lady in the town nearby me that had one of those olive oil stores where they, repackage olive oil and vinegar and sell it or whatever. So she was my point of reference for oil. So I took some of the sunflower oil that I had pressed into her store, and I said, look what I did. And she's, this is great. You could sell this. This could be a business, all these things, and I'm not interested in business. I'm trying to, like I said, not work and just garden. But, at the end of the day, how it works. So I was like, okay, well, maybe we could try setting up at the farmer's market. So we got a booth at the farmer's market, and I pressed and pressed, it was a little hand cranked oil press, press my oil all week. And I brought my little bottles of sunflower oil to the market and sold out in 15 minutes. And people cleaned me out. It was amazing. And I thought, well, press it again next week. Same thing. As fast as I could press the oil, people were buying it. And I thought, well, maybe we do have some sort of a business model here. Well, at the same time, while this is happening, I've been studying the uses of plants for most of my life and, working with herbs to craft these different medicines and stuff. So we started using the oils and then bringing these herbal products with me to market too, mostly just to kind of bulk up my offerings. So I wouldn't sell out of oil so fast was kind of my goal. But then I had the same problem, I guess you could say, selling out. People were responding so well to these handcrafted, locally made goods that I thought, well, maybe we should pursue this as a line of employment, as something more than just a hobby. And that slowly started to take off. And then while that was happening, inevitably, while you're at the farmer's market, people want to come and ask you questions. Oh, well, do you have an herb you'd recommend for this? Or, oh, I've been trying to grow this and that, and I can't seem to get it to work. Do you have any advice? So I thought, well, maybe we should have a little workshop and see if people want to come to a workshop and see.
Yeah.
And we sold it out. We packed the place, and people, and it was just like, okay, well, maybe we need to try that another time. And I don't know. They just kept rolling. I would like to sit here, Enoch, and tell you that this was all part of a grand design, that I had a master plan coming into what we're doing, but I really don't. It just kind of came to be selling seeds because, well, hey, I like growing these herbs that you just taught me how to grow. Do you got any seeds for them?
Right.
Sure, I guess I do. Let's try to produce more seeds. And now here we are where it's a full-time gig. Yeah. My wife and I run all of Small House Farm. The kids come and help as much as, that they can with what we're doing. And this is what we do for a job now is grow and sell herbs and seeds and teach people how to garden. And I write books, I spend my next book comes out April 4th. And from April 4th until the first day of summer vacation, which is something in June, I have 33 workshops that I'm giving all over the place. Yeah, I travel all over the country now to talk to people about the benefits of locally grown food and medicine. And, again, there was no plan to it. It was just getting out of my own way, I guess. Right.
I mean, how awesome is that? I mean, what a killer gig to have, right?
It could be worse. I've had worse jobs for sure. There's days, man, where I'll look up, I'm out in the middle of the woods gathering leaves and, I'm like, this is my day at work, not bad, and I'll paint it with a very rose colored brush because to make it sound wonderful. But as we all know, as entrepreneurs and freelancers, there's a lot of stress and a lot of work going on behind the scenes for sure. It's not as beautiful as I might make it sound, but it's pretty beautiful all the same, so we got to count our blessings, right?
Yeah, everything has gone so well for us over our first 4 shows we've done already so far. But that is one of those behind the scene things that people don't see is how we're clamoring. In fact, I think we got started a minute late today because we were just trying to get a couple of things that came up last minute, and just trying to throw things together. Yeah, so there's a ton of stress that comes along with it, but the cool thing is that we're gardening and we're gardeners, and so we have a great opportunity to de-stress later on.
A lifetime ago, I used to organize a music festival, pre-gardening days, and it was just like that where the show itself is incredible. People are having a great time, but backstage it's utter chaos the whole time. People are running and screaming and pulling their hair out and things are falling apart, but up on the stage, it looks beautiful for everybody, and that's how you're doing a good job, right?
Yep, that's really kind of funny too, because I didn't know that about you as well too, is that I actually dabbled in a little bit of music production and concert production back in college. And it's the same thing. I just remember that whole, being the producer, being the person who's in charge of making sure everything goes the way it's supposed to go that was probably one of the most stressful things I ever did. But yet, it was really great. Again, similar to with this show and everything, is to see the final outcome and to be a part of all of that is just awesome. So it kind of makes it worth the stress in the long run. But yeah, I remember those days. That was some fun.
For sure, man. And I got to tell you right here, you're doing a great job with the show. I've watched every episode. It's fantastic. You guys are doing a wonderful job for sure.
Awesome. That's really awesome to hear too. And again, when you're getting that feedback from everybody as well too about what you're doing, it's just a really makes a lot of things worth it as well too. So it looks like we still got another question or so here. Let's check out what is our next question from LP. What tips do you have for other gardeners with limited sun who want to grow everything?
All right, that's a good question. That's a question we're all facing, isn't it?
Yep.
So I got a few answers. One is sometimes you got to make some hard choices. Just like how I used to grow corn and I've had to cut corn out of my lineup because it just wasn't going to work for me. And sometimes you just have to face the facts that you're not going to be able to do everything. You want to grow everything? I want to grow everything, but I just know that that's not necessarily realistic. But we can certainly push those boundaries, right? And we could try to grow as many things as possible for sure. Looking into, plants that will grow well in partial sun is something that we do a lot of here. And I find that with some crops, I feel as if I can extend their harvest even by doing that. Spinach and lettuce, those are crops that prefer cooler weathers, right? They like cooler weather. And when it gets hot and sunny, they're going to bolt. They're not going to be good anymore. But I grow them practically in the shade, right? Well mulched and well watered, keeping those root systems moist, keeping the roots cool is the most important thing. Top of the plant, it can suck in the heat. That's fine. It's the roots that are going to make the decisions for these plants. So if we can keep that root system cool, we can extend their life a little bit longer. Cilantro. Cilantro is an herb. People can tell you, grow it in the full sun. Well, sure, you can, but it's going to bolt right away and that sort of thing. And you're going to have to plant cilantro every couple of days just to keep it going. I grow it in the shade. It might get a little lanky, but I'm going to have it for significantly longer, right? So just learning to kind of understand how these plants are doing their thing, what kind of boundaries we can sort of push with them, move them a little bit into the shade as we go. And you'll find that there's a lot of plants that will do just all right. They'll do fine with less sun than they're recommended to get, so you can kind of push those things. In addition to that, sometimes I'll grow stuff in pots just so I can move the pots around in the sun. Here at Small House, what my sunniest area is the big wraparound deck that we have in our house, right? And I'm not going to get rid of the deck because everyone likes to sit on it, but that's where most of my sun is. So I grow a lot of things in containers, even though I've got plenty of in-ground gardening. I've got raised beds all over the place. I'm still growing stuff in containers just so I can maximize that sun. Before we lived here, I lived in a house in town. It had a really long driveway, and it was the only place that we got any sun on like half the driveway. So I'd grow my tomatoes in pots, and then I'd come back out halfway through the day and move all the pots to the other side of the driveway just so I could keep them in the sun. So
it's one of those big advantages of doing small space container gardening too. It's one of those things you might not have the limited space, or again, in some cases you might actually have it, but containers are so awesome because of that ability to just move them around and to make sure that they're getting all of the sun and everything that they need. Absolutely.
So having a good plan is the key. Making a list of what do you really want to grow? What are your have-tos? What are your possible things you can cut? Making a realistic list of what you're going to want to grow. And then I like to diagram the garden. I'll get graph paper, because I can use that kind of as a measurement. And I will diagram out all of my garden plans to really kind of, it's almost like a Venn diagram of what do I want to grow and what do I actually have space for? And where that overlaps, that's my garden plan.
Yeah, excellent. All such really good stuff there. Which kind of maybe there's just a little bit more too, but usually my last question is if you have any advice or tips or anything like that for newer gardeners.
Yeah. So of course, start small, right? That's good advice. Don't overwhelm yourself. Don't try to do too many things at one time, especially if you're just learning, because you're probably going to make a mistake somewhere, and which is okay. But if you make a whole bunch of mistakes, you could get frustrated. You overwhelm yourself, you're going to get frustrated. And really what we're trying to do is have fun out in that garden. You want to get out there. You want to have a good time. All that delicious food that you're going to grow is almost like a side effect of having fun in the garden. So get out there, have a good time. Don't be afraid of making mistakes. Making mistakes is totally human nature. We're all going to do it. I've been gardening forever. Oh yeah, man. So on the podcast, one of the 5 questions that I always ask folks is, what was a recent garden failure and what was the lesson that you learned from that? That's the question I ask. And every person's like, oh, that's a long list. I can't believe I only have to pick one. Because even
That's
the most
right.
experienced growers, we're messing things up all the time, you know?
Yep,
So
yep.
just be prepared to make mistakes and learn how to roll with it.
Exactly. And that's a big thing though too, is don't get discouraged. There's a lot of challenges when it comes to gardening. There's so many aspects of it. Again, as you talked about, whether you're gardening in a shadier area or a more sunnier area, if you have containers or in ground, or pests are another big challenge for people and all that sort of
Yeah.
stuff. And it's one of the things I always tell people when I'm talking online or giving advice and everything, is to not get discouraged, because those things are going to happen. You're going to find the challenges, you're going to find mistakes or things that don't grow as well, and to just keep going at it. It's one of the things I like to refer to gardening as similar to baseball or other sports, is that you might not have the greatest season this season, but there's always next season.
Oh, I like that.
Learn and take some of the things that you figured out, similar to what you talk about though too, with diagramming and everything. I talk about garden journaling. Write some of this stuff down so that you can remember it next year, so that you can not make the same mistake, or work on those sort of challenges that you're facing and all of that too. Those are all really good things to do for newer gardeners, because I want to see as many gardeners succeed out there as possible, because gardening, again, is one of those just really wonderful experiences where not only do we get, like you said, the food and the things that are the outcomes of our garden as as a side effect, in a sense, we also get that garden therapy. There's
Yes.
nothing better than to de-stress from the crazy world or your crazy job, or things going on with the family, all that sort of stuff, than to be able to step out into a garden and just be able to work in the soil. It's just an amazing experience.
My happiest moment of every day is I'll wake up, I'll pour a cup of coffee, and I'll just walk around in the garden, right? It's just when things are just starting to wake up, the sun's coming up, the birds are starting to sing you some songs, and it's just so
Yep.
peaceful. Oh, it's the greatest thing. Everything else just melts away. Nothing else even exists anymore. It's just that beauty of the garden. It's the greatest thing. Like you're saying, I mean, never be afraid of making mistakes. You're going to learn stuff every time, so I'll do seminars for master gardeners, Enoch. And at the end of the talk, how many of them raise their hands to ask questions? And these folks in my garden, they're master gardeners. They've been doing it their whole lives, and they're still learning new stuff. We do this our whole, we're going to keep learning things. So if you're brand new to it, well, you got a wonderful world ahead of you of learning coming up. So just, buckle up and take the ride. And it's the most fun that you're going to have.
Yes, exactly. I kind of say that, if you're not continually learning things in the garden, then are you really gardening?
For sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, so awesome again to have you here with us, Bevin. It's been such a great conversation. I've been looking forward to this interview for weeks now. And again, thanks for taking your time out today to join with us here on the Let's Get Growing LiveCast.
Thank you so much for having me. This has been an absolute blast. Such a pleasure. Thank you to everyone that helps put the show together. Everybody's been watching. Enoch, man, you're the man. Thank you so much for having me out today.
Awesome. Again, yeah, thank you so much. And we'll see you here real soon.
Sounds good.
Thank you. Awesome. How awesome is that? What a great conversation with Bevin Cohen, author and podcaster at Seeds and Weeds Podcast. You can find at smallhousefarm.com. There's a link down below in the description. Go check out everything that he's got there. Go check out some of his books. Like I said, I've got this one called From Our Seeds and Their Keepers. Really some amazing, cool stories about saving seeds and seed stories and all of that sort of stuff too, plus all of the other books that he has there too. And again, you can find him also featured every now and then on in Mother Earth News magazine, and again, awesome conversation, just really great there too. We also want to thank Lanny from Gingerfoot Gardener, who we following on Instagram, for joining with us today and talking about all of her fun gardening that she's been doing lately. And as well, Emmanuel Arce of Ultimate Gardening. What an awesome young man, and all of his gardening things he's got going on too. So be sure to check out all of these great gardeners down in the links below in our description, and you can go and follow along with them there too. So I hope you all have enjoyed today's show, and again, to check out all the links and everything down in the description. And I also like to mention at this point in time too that, you know, one of the best ways that you can support our show is to support our sponsor. The show is sponsored by Ivory Organics. You can see them at ivorganics.com, and they have a really cool shop. They have an amazing fertilizer. They got a 3-in-1 plant guard. They got some other different things that they offer there in their store as well. So be sure to go check out ivorganics.com. Go shop for some of their things there, and be sure to use our promo code GROW10, GROW 10, and you can get 10% off of everything that they have offered in their store. So again, thank you to all of our guests this week. Next week's guest, we'll be talking with Scott Head of Black Gumbo Gardening, and we'll also have with us Rachel of Oxheart Gardening for our channel of the week, and we'll be following Sisters in the Garden. So we're going to have some really fun gardening conversations again next week. We've had a wonderful show. It's been so awesome to have all of you following along with us here today. And be sure, get down in the comments. Let us know what you think of the show. Be sure to hit that like button and give us a big thumbs up for our show today and all of our guests that we've had. And also, of course, be sure to subscribe to our channel so that you can follow along with all of our fun gardening adventures here on the Urban Gardener channel. And from all of us here at Let's Get Growing, have a great week. We'll see you all next Saturday.